Good morning, good morning, good morning. These are the folks that set alarms this morning. I'm so proud of you. Thanks for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yes, thank you. My name is Sheik, and I'm really excited to have you here today. And I hope if you did bother to bring yourself here this morning, that you get some of the tools and some of the advice and just some of the word that you need to continue on your path, loving your creative life. If you're just coming in, just to make sure you're in the right room, we are the Staying Creatively Healthy panel. And we're gonna skip bios just to save on time, because they're all on your phones if you've downloaded the Excel event app. And be sure to just check these folks out, because they are really fantastic and underspoken people. Everyone up here is not gonna tell you how awesome they are, so I will try to do that as we speak. We are missing one panelist, Attique Iqbal. He's stuck in traffic, but he will join us as soon as he gets here. And we're gonna, in real time, put some of this stress de-escalation into practice. How's that sound? So, just starting with Juliet Lyons here to my left. And we can go down the line for this question. Tell us just the difference between what is your day job or your training, and what is your passion, and where do the two meet?
Thank you for having me, Angela.
Good having you.
So passion and job connect for me, luckily, but I do have a lot of jobs, as I think probably a lot of us do. I am a new age recording artist. I am a production music singer, songwriter, composer. I have a YouTube channel called Your Online Singing Coach. I work part-time for the Association of Independent Music Publishers, also known as the AIMP. I do work for Higher Vocals, and one more, I also do some vocal coaching.
That's a few hats to be wearing. Yes, thank you, Juliet. Merideth.
Sure, thank you. I trained as a classical oboist, and that'll be important later because it'll feed into my struggle with burnout. But I went to college for 12 years to study oboe, including a doctorate from the Juliet School. And I got out of school, and we're going to talk more about those pivotal moments in our career when we felt burnt out. But I was really longing for a more multi-passionate, multifaceted life. And so I do continue to play in freelance in orchestras and play solo recitals, but I also enjoy writing about creativity and joy and helping artists as a one-on-one coach to connect. The passion really for me is helping people reconnect with their joy for creativity that maybe they haven't felt for decades, even if they've been doing this creative work for a long time. So my passions and my day jobs intersect as well. Thank you.
And just saying, she studied oboe. She has a doctorate of oboe performance from Juilliard, okay? This is what I'm saying. These folks, you really need to read these bios. And Lawrence.
I don't know if this compares, but I played the viola in middle school. Is that? Definitely did not become a passion of mine. So today I'm an executive coach, and I'm also a leadership consultant. And I think they are my passions. I get to work with high-level leaders and help them achieve some amazing things while retaining quality of life. So that's deeply meaningful for me. As a leadership consultant, I go into teams and organizations and help their teams just work better, right? Because a lot of times people can focus on the work, but a lot of the work is with the people around you, and people forget how to do that work. And so I think the passion for me isn't just about creating really cool business results, but I think I imagine a future where, number one, we just have healthy leaders across the board. I think that we don't recognize how much leadership creates the world that we have today, and if we have healthier leaders, we'll have a healthier world. I think the second passion of mine and why I do this work is I really do envision a day where there isn't this separation between who we are when we're doing our work and who we are outside. Like, everything comes from who we are, and I want all of it to be fun and amazing and meaningful. And so all of that is that for me. So I think I am combining the passion and the training together. So thanks.
Awesome. I hope you take a moment to follow these folks online too, because I was thinking as you were speaking, Lawrence, that you always have a twist on it. You always have me clicking because you post something like, work smarter, not harder. No! And then I'm like, wait, what? That's what I've always tried to do. Yeah, so always having an interesting spin on leadership and just focusing on your goals. Okay, so I just want to clarify something here because we're going to be talking a bit about burnout, and we had a discussion before we came in today that maybe we should clarify that term. So I'm looking at my burnout experts, Lawrence and Merideth. Do you want to give us the clinical definition?
I'm going to have Merideth share on this one.
Take it away.
So I actually researched this a lot for a book I'm working on, and I learned that a doctor named John Freudenberger was the first one to coin that term, and it was in the 1970s in a free substance abuse clinic in New York City where he noticed something going on with the staff. And he coined that term and defined it as an intense and long sustained exhaustion that affects you mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it's long-term exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. And so stress and burnout have a correlation in the research. And so it's really, if you want to solve your burnout, you have to look at your stress.
So we're going to be talking today about one specific event. And I just want to clarify that for a moment, because when I look back at my life, burnout has been kind of an escalating concern, right, as you continue in your career. But there's definitely been moments where you hit a wall or where you saw something was coming and you had to make some drastic changes. Some of this led me to work with Merideth and Lawrence and get to learn about their skills here. But so we're going to go through and just describe the moment that first comes to mind, that burnout moment where you're like, oh crap. I've invested so much in this career, I've invested so much to get here, and I don't think I want to go any further. So can we talk about a moment for each of you? And you don't have to go in order.
Juliet. We're going to go in order. Okay, so I've definitely experienced burnout more than once, but most recently it happened at Christmas time this year. I think this happens with a lot of us, that we're very focused when we are working on our music or music-related activities, and it's very, very hard to tear ourselves away because it is our passion and it is our job. And so I just go, and it's very hard for me to take time to balance. And recently, in 2019, I was diagnosed with a rare airway disease called idiopathic subglottic stenosis.
Can you say that one more time?
I know, it's a mouthful. Idiopathic subglottic stenosis. And things that I used to do to help myself have balance are things that really aren't so accessible to me anymore. So I wasn't getting my coping mechanisms. I wasn't getting the balance that I needed. And so when I get burnt out, it's exhaustion, and the way exhaustion happens for me is particularly emotionally. And I think probably a lot of us are like this too, where we support people so much, we believe in people so much.
I don't know anybody like that out in this audience, actually, but we can imagine. Continue.
Yeah, but when it comes to yourself, you are so hard on yourself, so critical, so mean. And that's what I do when I'm burnt out. I just beat myself up. I blame myself for being burnt out. I'm like, you didn't do this, whatever. I really, really beat myself up. And usually I'm the only one that hears that. But at Christmas time this year, I was with my mom and my sister. I had really wanted to just take a few days off, like completely unplug between Christmas and New Year's, maybe not do anything. But there were so many things I had to do, and the time was gone. And the whole year had gone, and I felt like I never had a break. Yeah. And I had hit that spot where I was just exhausted. And I just started just laying into myself, really verbally abusing myself to my mom and my sister, and they were so shocked at the things I said.
You verbalized it.
I verbalized
Wow.
it, yeah. And my mom, like, she left the room, she was so upset. And my sister just looked at me and said, "You need to be on medication." And that was a pivotal moment for me.
Wow. I know you recently shared a video as well. Was it last December?
That was actually a few Decembers ago.
Okay,
but
where,
yeah.
where you were sharing this on video, and it's really, I mean, it is hard to watch because we do this to ourselves, and it's rare that we share it with another person. And wow, it's revealing when you share it to somebody. You hear your sister talking like that. It's really eye-opening how we speak to ourselves in our heads. Meredith, I know you speak specifically about this photograph.
Yeah, so I was standing on West 65th Street in Broadway on the day of my Juilliard audition, smiling for my dad's iPhone 6 or something. And I saw that picture later that day, and I was thinking, during that photo, I was like, how am I supposed to do this for the rest of my life when I don't even like music anymore? And I had gotten this terminal degree, and I thought, terminal's the perfect word, because something in me has died. And that was really the beginning of realizing, wow, it's gone off the rails. And I think what it was about for me was, yes, the intensely competitive atmosphere of schools like that, but it was also a lack of tending to a joy that I had felt for music as a kid. I had traded that in for being excellent. And I had sought a career in music to outrun the shame and the fear of not being good enough, instead of seeking it for the joy that I found from playing oboe. And that was really the beginning of the low point of the upward trajectory of finding a way through and accessing tools and developing tools myself to help other artists who were in that position. But it was really hard when I needed to make money, because I was on my own for the first time outside of school, outside of the grad school bubble, and to not have anything left, no gas in the tank left.
Yeah. And you know, if do we have any music degrees in here? One or two? Okay, I thought so. You know, your music degree starts when you're 6 years old, not when you're 18. So that's a lifelong pursuit. And I think too, do we have folks with classical backgrounds? Yeah. You're not allowed to do classical plus. You can be classical and that's it, or you're not serious. You're really not a serious performer. So to consider another outlet is looked down on, right?
Yeah, I remember another pivotal moment in my undergrad where I wanted to do a double major in creative writing. And
Double major.
my oboe teacher said, well, that just took away all your practice time. And I don't think he was wrong, but I saw that as a message. Like, if I'm not fully in this, I mean, how many of you have been told, you know, if you can do anything else with your life, you should. And I think that's a harmful message because, you know, it diminishes the multifaceted, multi-passionate people that we are, that is sometimes the key to unlocking a joyful, diverse life.
Absolutely. Lawrence.
Yeah, I can still remember it. The distinct moment was in January of 2019, and just to give you some context, I grew up in San Francisco. I spent half my life here. I moved down to LA when I was about 6 months married. So really as newlyweds, my wife and I came down here and started our whole life in LA. And every year, I think we moved in 2006, every year I would ask my wife, usually around January, are you happy with where we are? Every year, because I wanted to check in that we were on the same page together. In January of 2019 was the first time I looked at her and I said, are you happy this year? And she said, no, I'm not. The first time in our marriage. And that gave me permission to say to her, I'm not happy either. Yeah. So I think that was really clear that where I was at in my journey, I was had started a nonprofit from scratch and basically was at the top of it with a full staff. And I had been running hard for 7 years. And there probably were some outcomes, some results that I wanted to see that I wasn't seeing. And I think we got to the point, after pushing hard for 7 years, of feeling like, I think we might be done, you know? So in that conversation, there was sort of this, what does that mean? What do we do? And I think when we talk about creativity, everything started, going from color to black and white to gray. A lot of my senses were getting dull. I wasn't excited about the work I do, which is odd when you're part of something so mission-driven, right, in a nonprofit space, one that you created, one that you've paved the way. I mean, everything was healthy organizationally on almost every metric. I even had a friend visit and said, "This is amazing what you've built." And I remember telling him, "And we're thinking about leaving it all."
Yeah.
And so that was a distinct moment for me where I don't think I knew I was in burnout. I don't think I knew till maybe a year.
We're going to
or
talk
two.
about that.
Yeah, a year or two later. But it was like, I think I'm done, not just with my work, but the entire industry. And so I was looking for a full pivot to do something completely different. So,
Can anybody relate to any of these stories that they're telling? I could definitely relate. And I could tell you, I ran a nonprofit for 4 years, the Guild of Music Supervisors. And this is where I really began to have interest in this topic, because I was managing a guild of burnt out people. People that their passion was music, but they were losing their love for it because it was just so intense. There were no breaks, there were no stops, it didn't pay enough. And everybody had to work day and night and weekends to make ends meet, including myself. And just really started to see, okay, when your passion meets your paycheck, things get complicated. And you really need to become much more proactive about finding the flags, seeing the signs, and making corrective tweaks, right? Before you're at the, I think I'm done stage. So that's why we're here, is to look for the signs, which I'm sure we all have, and see what are some daily, weekly, monthly activities and practices we can put into our life to make sure that we are filling the tank as it's emptying out on the other side, right? So as we think about these events, what were some red flags along the way that you should have paid attention to, looking back?
I notice when my emotions start to affect me physically, and I am a person who has had panic attacks, enough of them to really be aware of, just like earthquakes, there might be like a little tremor first, and then the big event happens. So it's like that in my body. I can feel the energy start to tense up.
I have it right now, to be honest. I'm managing it. You get used to managing it, don't we? Yes.
Yeah, breathe. And the other thing is I get way more emotional. I just start crying.
Yeah, the fuse gets shorter for
Yes,
emotion. Yeah, okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the things that are definite warning signs for me.
Yeah. How about you two?
Yeah, for me, a big sign. So I have 4 kids. They were much younger back then. But there's some tell signs. One big one was kid pickup. Anybody have to do kid pickups from school and stuff like that? And even
Some
if you're not
tired hands just came up in the air.
even if you're not a parent, hopefully you'll relate on some level. Kid pickups were a big deal for me because I felt like I had to step away from work and then go there and sit, and then the bell took forever to ring. The teacher took forever to let the kids out, and then my own kids took forever to walk to me, and then there was like an hour walk back to the car. It wasn't actually an hour. That's what it felt like, right? These are just the signs of everything felt like it was taking so long because it was taking me from work. And what that did over time was, even when I was home, I was physically there but mentally checked out. My mind would just keep going. And so there's these moments of what ended up happening over time is I would see my kids as getting in the way of my work. And if I was really honest, my kids were getting in the way of my ambitions. And that's when it was like, oh. And my wife would, try to tell me different ways of like, hey, things are hard right now. And I started saying to her, it won't always be this hard. We're just in startup phase. Give us a couple years. And that's why by the 7th year, I caught myself. I have been saying the same line to my wife for 7 years. Yeah. And I still saw my kids as getting in the way, from kid pickup to like, they need me for this. It was like, let me go work on stuff. And so that was just some good tell signs for myself.
That's so good. And even changing from kids to relationships. Oh, my relationships are getting in the way of my agenda for this work. Yeah, that's That hurts, but it's true. Meredith?
What you said a minute ago about the black and white gray area thing really resonated, because for me, I remember those days of just like pushing forward. The thing that was motivating me, like I said, was like fear and shame. And all of a sudden, no matter what I achieved, it just was like, well, I mean, I might feel a jolt because I won an award or played a great concert or something, but it didn't last for long. And I had like at one point I just had a deep apathy. Like, I can't motivate myself. I used to have this discipline button that I could just push to make myself practice, and I just couldn't anymore, and I didn't even care. And so the world started to look less colorful, and I was definitely enjoying myself less. And I think, for me, the thing that I regret about that, or the way I got to that place, was in the research about burnout. A lot of people think that you need to reduce your stress by taking away the stressors in your life. But in reality, the thing you need to do is manage the stress, complete the stress cycle, because the stressors are never going away. I mean, and not all stressors are bad. All stressors and all stress is bad. And so I wish that I had seen healthy ways of coping, which are, physical exercise and deep breathing and connection with others through laughter and crying and, those moments. I wish I had made that a priority, and those things that seem like a quote-unquote waste of time for incredibly driven people are actually a way for you to cope and maintain the strength to go on.
Because you're physically getting stuck in a low-level panic that you get used to living with, right? Is that kind of what we're saying? That to complete the stress cycle, fight or flight, you ran till you hit to the cave, and then you're exhausted, but you got away from the lion, or whatever, however that worked out.
Yeah,
but we don't ever get that point of relief, right? It's just constant.
When I was reading about burnout and they told me that I needed to exercise more, I wanted to throw the book across the room. I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. So physical exhaustion is one way to complete the stress cycle, but there are other ways too, and creativity is one. And creativity may be different than writing music, because that might not feel creative for you right now.
Right. That's one thing we're going to talk about, is when you're in the creative business, getting creative about your creativity, because you need to diversify a little bit. Yeah, okay, I want to ask the audience too. We're going to have a Q&A, so this isn't time for questions yet, but any other just short, if you want to shout out, other little things that you notice when you're hitting burnout? Anyone have suggestions? My eyes roll more. They just, oh my goodness, I have to go mingle, open bar.
When open bar is not exciting to you.
Right, when that stuff's not exciting anymore. Yeah. Yes, I saw one hand and then up front. Procrastination. Excellent answer. Stan. Impatience. What else?
Everything has like a pessimistic lens.
Negative, pessimistic undertone on everything. Gary. Tired, fatigue.
And pick fights.
I pick fights! Thank you for being honest about that. Yes, absolutely. Aggression. Lay on that horn a little too much, maybe. Yes. Any more? All the way to the back.
Yelling at other drivers.
Yes. Taking it out on perfect strangers. Over here.
Less attention for kids or spouse.
Okay. Relationships are suffering. In the middle. Indecisiveness.
I don't have kids, but I would resent myself. I'll stand there and think, I have lost hours of my life waiting for you to take it.
Walking you, we'll say. Yeah. Thanks, okay. Hi, good to see you. Yeah, really, really great answers. So we're seeing these red flags, right? They're popping up. One more question about this moment that we've been talking about, and then we'll talk about some positive direction that we can take. What were key contributors to this event? What were some, maybe outside of your control, maybe some things, some habits that led you to that pivotal moment?
I guess some habits are kind of what we were all just talking about, like just just not making time for anything else. And not being able to recognize that I'm not prioritizing things that make me feel better. Getting things done, you know, it's like, it's something, but there's always more.
Right.
There's always more. I go to bed every night like, I didn't get this done.
Right. Or
And-
eat lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and we that's even a great example is something that I've learned on the other side is how important it is for me to take the time to make food
Yeah.
instead of just grabbing like processed whatever, like "Oh, that's fast, I can eat that now."
Yeah.
But actually taking the time, like we were saying, like things that shouldn't be something we resent, like making yourself a meal.
Yeah.
I resent that sometimes. Like,
That's real. That's so real. Every day. Anything else that stands out as a key contributor?
For me, the biggest one, and I hope somebody can relate to this here, the biggest key contributor is the pressure I put on myself. Like, that is hands down created everything else that created stress for myself, is the pressure I put on myself to either perform or the pressure I put on myself to get certain outcomes. And when I was not matching my own expectation, I was just in this loop. And so what that led to is the second key contributor, which is not understanding rest. You know, in the US, right, we kind of like, we work really hard, and then we have summertime, we might take some trips, and then we work really hard again for that second sprint, which we're in right now, by the way, September. And then we work really hard till right about the holidays, right? And then we go away for a little bit. So I didn't know what rest was, and I think in a highly productive society or productivity society, we kind of just work really hard and have this moment of like, finally I can take a vacation. For me, I didn't even understand what vacation was, to be honest. But rhythms of rest, why rest is important, wasn't anything that was part of my life. And then a third component is people to talk to about it. Like when for me, when I was at the top of my organization, it's hard to have somebody talk about things I'm going through and the things I'm thinking about. And so finding a community of people where I could be real of like, hey, I have these goals, or I have this immense pressure that I'm going through. Like, how are you guys dealing with this? I think would have been crucial for me. And sometimes, right, I'm looking for like, it's got to be that perfect group of people, you know, the people who just get me, as opposed to finding just beauty in, you know, people around me who are just having some similar struggles.
Right,
So.
right. It's difficult in this town to live a vulnerable life. It really is impossible because you don't necessarily line yourself up for work, in which we need constantly, especially if you're in freelance, right, to continue to survive. Meredith, what were you thinking?
I think the thing I haven't named publicly is I think I let people stay in my life who shouldn't be in my life. Like I let the toxic relationships stay. And you know, when I got into Juilliard, there was this one teacher who had this reputation for being like the one that breaks people. And I remember somebody saying to me, like, if anybody can handle it, it's you. And looking back, if I were my own daughter, I would like, maybe that's not the best thing for you. But I sort of allowed these toxic, and that teacher wasn't the only person who was like that in that time in my life. I had these people who did not support me. And I let them kind of dictate how I felt about myself. And they didn't have my best interest at heart. And so if you're there and there are people like that in your life, even if it means quitting your job or changing careers or dropping out of school or making a big pivot, it's worth it. Because if the price you pay for success is your joy, that's a hefty price. It's too heavy. It's not worth it.
Since this pivotal experience that we've been talking about, what are some changes that you've made in your life or are making, right? Because we take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Let's be honest. So what are some changes that you're working on or you're making, or some practices you've put into place so you do not land there again?
One shift for me has been to get away from big statements and work on little things. So before I would say something, oh my gosh, I need a week off. How can I make that happen? What can be done? And it feels so overwhelming to say something like that because I can't take a week off. And so it doesn't happen, and no problems get solved. But something that's really been working for me is to have this little tiny bit of structure for these self-care activities. Self-care is different for everybody, and I've learned that for me, something that really makes me feel good is cleaning. I like
Do you need my address?
I mean, I feel good energy when my space is clean.
Absolutely.
And so after I eat, breakfast, lunch, dinner, I take 10 to 20 minutes, I clean, or I cook, or I might work out a bit, or get outside, get some sunshine, things that make me feel good that I can do in small quantities of time. It's doable that way for me, and it gets done. So that's a big difference for me that's just worked better. And just to keep it real for everybody here, going back to the Christmas incident, another thing that has worked well for me is I did take my sister's advice, and I got on medication. I got on an antidepressant, and it's really just helped with my brain chemistry. I just needed that little boost. I've had a cognitive behavioral therapist for 8 years, and she's been amazing. She's helped me so much, but it wasn't enough. And this was just this little extra bit for me that's just making things better.
Great, great. I love the idea of vacations throughout the day. That's really neat. Thanks for sharing.
I've embraced more play and fun, and not on the oboe. I lead an online creative recovery support group, and I met 2 actors who specialize in improv. And we meet together once a week and have like a play date. And we play improv games on Zoom. And, it's 20 minutes. But I leave feeling lighter, and we laugh a lot, and it's silly and sort of, it doesn't move me towards any goal, but it recharges some inner child, some deep creative part of me that it's been a real lifeline.
Yeah, that's so good. Lawrence?
I think the biggest shift is, we live into better questions we're asking ourselves. I think, in my 20s and 30s, which is giving away that I'm not in my 30s, I was asking the question, how could I be known for doing great things? And I wanted this reputation for myself, like I've achieved great things. And so everything was sort of, headed toward that direction. Now the question is real of how can I live a life that is just enjoyable and rich and wonderful and amazing? And so I'm thinking about what are things that light me up and excite me and give me joy and are fun, and then how do I create that? And so every day I'm thinking of that. This is a version, like I get to hang out with Angela and these really cool people and everyone here. This is fun. Yeah. This is exciting. It lights me up. Hopefully it lights you guys up. One thing that lights me up is I'd love to have a coffee connection with a person every day. That would be amazing. Mm-hmm. I'd love to have beer with a group of guys once a week. That would be amazing. How could I do that? Good question. Yeah. Let's figure that out.
Meredith, I love what you said earlier about thinking about yourself as if you were your daughter. And you said self-care, Juliet, which I sometimes get a little twisted about that word, right? Because it's like getting your nails done or whatever people consider self-care. Maybe that is, but the idea of self-parenting is really helpful. Like a good parent telling you, put that down, you've worked all day, go do something fun. Yeah, it's really, really helpful. What do you wish to share with these folks that have come to this room because they're feeling the sense of burnout? They're feeling that this is not sustainable. The track that I'm on, the patterns that I've set, they're not sustainable. What words of advice or consideration would you care to share?
2 things. I would say, to begin with, just say no. Sometimes that's to a project that your heart isn't in, but you feel obligated to do it. or it's with someone you love and you want to do it as a friend kind of thing, but you're already reaching that threshold. And then sometimes you have to say no to yourself. This is one that I'm working on, the self-parenting. It's tough. Like I'm a spoiled brat to myself, apparently. You know, I just want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it's 12:45 at night, and I'm halfway done with a vocal comp. I'm like, if I just do another hour, I can get it done tonight. Turns into an hour and a half. By the time the light goes out, it's 2:30 in the morning. And if I had just said no at 12:45, you're going to bed now. This is good for you. You know?
Yeah.
So that's one thing, is working on just saying no. And then the other thing I would say is that, you know, like, I kind of puke when people say self-care, like, it's just become such a buzzword.
Right.
But what does it mean to you? What makes you feel good? Everyone is unique. I think there are some standards, like exercise and stuff. But, you know, like, I'm sure cleaning, maybe that's a weird one for some people, but that makes me feel good. So maybe just spend some time brainstorming what makes me feel good.
I love that. Yeah, make a list so that when you are not thinking with your number one brain, right, as we were approaching brain out, you have that to go to. That's great. That's great. Meredith.
In my book, I have an exercise that's, you know, it's always surprising when you do a big project, like what's going to resonate with people. And the number one thing that people say when they read my book is about the lens shifting exercise. And so if I offer you any tool, it's that one. It's learning how to bring awareness to the fact that your feelings about what's happening to you in your life are coloring the way you're able to respond. And so learning to shift your lens, almost like if you're wearing sunglasses that are polarized, to name, actually, because I feel like when I play, I sound bad, I can't see my situation as neutral enough to believe there's another way of seeing it to then take action to change my circumstances. And so just trying on the lens of curiosity about how you're feeling and not believing everything you think, not because you're gaslighting yourself, but because you have the power to shift your own lens through some of the work of curiosity instead of judgment.
What are some other lenses? Like curiosity is such a good one, to just look at your situation with a sense of curiosity, like a scientist. Why am I feeling that? Oh, why do I say that? What are some other lenses that you would suggest?
Well, I think like the lens of perspective, like thinking about yourself as a precious object that when you treat yourself like that, it makes you strong. So like the precious object lens of I'm not a baby, I'm not lazy because I can't take action, right? And taking off that lens of judgmentalism and laziness and try on one of compassion and radical acceptance. Those are really helpful.
Yeah. Even going back to what you said, Juliet, about the power of no. How often have you gotten out of a job, right? I can speak to this, and you look back and think of all the times you should have said no at that job, right? Once you've left it, you see, oh man, if I'd had some more boundaries, that might have been more sustainable, right? So even the lens of past, present, future. Yeah. Thank you. Lawrence.
Yeah, I want to share an analogy, and I will make it a distinction, and this will go back to kind of what I shared in the beginning of really helping people understand that the work we do comes out of who we are, and really not them being two separate things. So I want to make a distinction between self-care, because we've all heard the analogy, if you have any therapists in your life, of you know, when you go on an airplane, they tell you to take the oxygen mask, right? You put on yourself first before you put on the person next to you, because you have to be self-care. You have to be in a good place so that you can help the other person, right? And what I've told people is, like, self-care is super important. But here's the thing. You're still on a plane that's going down. You know what I mean? Like,
Thanks, Lawrence, but yes.
That shouldn't, like, that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to separate work where it's like, I'm going to come home and have fun, and then at work, it's like I'm just wearing an oxygen mask for self-care. I want to create my own damn plane. I want to figure out where I want to fly to, who's on that plane, and what that whole experience is. And that's the distinction I want to talk about, because I think if we can get clear about that kind of life, then we will reorder the entire thing. I'll give you an example. I was sitting down with somebody yesterday. I didn't realize, I just met the guy. but he's literally in a stage of burnout.
Yeah.
He was real estate, big partner. I think he like had 300 agents he was managing. Now he's just by himself with his wife in his home in Long Beach. And he goes, I still struggle with just doing everything every night, working on all the tasks.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's interesting. And so this will get to some of the frames. I said, what would you want your work to feel like? I would like for it to be fun. I would like for it to be empowering. I would like for it to be enjoyable. Awesome. So let's take that, right? Talking about lenses. How could your work right now? Well, what would shift if it was fun, empowering, and enjoyable? And he said, I wouldn't do these little tasks. I would just give it to somebody else. Cool. What do you want to do with that? I guess I'll give it to somebody else. So I want to make that distinction, right? As important as self-care is, in that moment, he's like, I want to get clear about the new life I want to live, which then will shape and become the filter for how I make every decision. Even as small as, I could work from 8 to 10 p.m. and just work on these little tasks. You could. You don't have to. If you want to create a whole new, brand new plane with the people on it and where you want to go, you're going to do it differently. And just notice that little filter we just created in that moment can be a guiding light for you on how you make decisions. So I think that would be the thing I impart to you is think about with clarity how you want your life to look like and give yourself some words. I like playing with 3 words. Fun is always a great one, right? I would like it to be these things. And how would that be a filter for how that would shift your situation right now? Because yeah, there's things you can't control. The situation is the same, but you can control how you're relating to it and how you relate to it differently. Notice how that can shift so much right there.
So great. And as you can see, why I brought these two on this panel, because you offer a lot of resources for folks that you find in this situation. So I want to give Lawrence and Merideth a chance here, because I've worked with you both and benefited greatly from it. And I know there are things that you offer for free for folks who are in this space or want to explore more, and there are things that you offer as a service from your company. Can you share about some of the resources that you have that these folks can benefit from?
Absolutely. I had a box of books shipped here for this very moment. I'll be outside the hall after this to meet you. But this book is really all the tools I've learned to find my way back to joy for music and for life. And it includes the lens shifting exercise. And we lead an online creative recovery support group that meets on Tuesday afternoon for Pacific time. And Angela has been a co-facilitator with me in that. And
for 4 years, going on 5, yeah.
So in the fall, we do my book, The Artist's Joy, and then starting in February, we'll be doing Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, which I know was mentioned in the keynote this year. And so if you're curious about the work of creative recovery, even if you're not sure you need it, it's a really powerful thing. If you go to artistforjoy.org, you can learn about that, or come see me and grab my business card. I also work one-on-one with artists from all disciplines, not just music. I also do retreats for teams and helping people reconnect with joy and play and use creativity to have a better life. And so if you find that, if you're the boss and you want to inject a little play into your team, then I'd love to chat more about that with you.
And if I can hype this a little bit, because she is so understated with this stuff. So I started this facilitating or helping to facilitate her online sessions in 2020 during the pandemic. And I had a job that was taking over my life at the time, but it was so important. And you had hundreds, if not thousands of people on Zoom, where we would have big groups and small groups and just kind of practices and activities where we worked on our creative health together. And some folks were in there saying, I don't know if I'm an artist, right? I'm in sales. But they found happiness writing plays or whatever it was that you wanted to do as a kid that you just had put on the sideline because you're so busy with your day job. And I can't tell you how incredibly impactful those groups are. Meredith's podcast is also the only one on my phone that has 0 unplayed episodes. It's called The Artist's Joy, Artist for Joy. And it's really incredible, in-depth look at and interviews with folks who are committed to creative health, and they're working on it in a daily path.
I'm proud to say that all 5 seasons, I've had a different theme song every season, but they're all by Angela Sheik.
Don't judge it by that. You still listen to the... Just hit fast forward 30 seconds. I'm just kidding.
Her music is the voice of Artists for Joy podcast.
Thanks, Meredith. And I wrote her theme song for her book, so I've read it from cover to cover and ingested it. And if you like the artist's way, which I've failed at reading it about 4 times before I really got started actually doing the activities in that book. It's been a huge help, and this falls right in line with that book, just leading you on a path toward creative health. And Lawrence.
Yeah, resources. Anybody here can find me. I offer like a 30-minute connect call where you're just gonna get coached for 30 minutes, and then I might share some resources with you based on what we chat about. A really great resource for me during that time, she's a TEDx speaker. Dr. Kristen Neff wrote this book on self-compassion. I think she has a workbook too. I would really recommend that if you're like me, where you put tons of pressure on yourself. I have very high expectations, and the highest expectations are the ones I put on myself, which people have told me that it's pretty hard to live up to my expectations, and then I forget that it's hard for myself to live up to those expectations. I think that's a great resource. I'm also starting a cohort in October that only meets once a month, so it's easily doable. It's very accessible in terms of the rate if you're interested in doing that cohort. That cohort's called Limitless Leadership Cohort, and I call it leadership because I think it's important for us to recognize whether you're in a title or position of leadership, we're all leading ourselves. Like, all of life is learning how to lead ourselves effectively and powerfully. Self-care is a form of leadership. And so if that could be of interest to you, you want to join the cohort. It's a fun place that we get to do it in community, group wisdom. There might be some spot coaching in on it, and you'll get some really powerful tools and resources. So hopefully get a chance to connect with you.
So I've worked with Lawrence, and he's always, as you've seen here, flipping the paradigm. I always walk away with a mind that has just been open, reconsidering my situation in a new way. And Lawrence also works with companies. So if you're looking at your team and you're seeing that your team is burning out, or that there are just some need to explore and consider a new way of leadership or a new way of communication, Lawrence is so excellent at that. And Juliet, did you have additional resources that you wanted to share with the group?
I'll share a couple of resources that are helpful to me. One is called the Calm app. You've probably heard of it. I love to fall asleep to the sleep stories because it's hard to shut my mind off even at 3 a.m. And so I love the sleep stories. There's some nice meditations there. They even have some 5-minute movement that I like to do sometimes.
Yeah. And I think I have Kaiser Permanente, and it's free through Kaiser.
Cool. Yeah. That's cool. And then, this one's a little nerdy and embarrassing, but I really want to say it for the ladies in the room. We're talking about putting a lot of pressure on myself, being mean to myself, hating on myself because I'm not achieving. And so it's a podcast, and it's called Habits of a Goddess. And you have to kind of forward through 4 minutes of sponsorship stuff.
They have to keep the lights on too.
Yeah, of course. That's fair. It's fair. But it's basically affirmations. And I think it Stuart Smalley, if anyone remembers SNL. But it really helps me. I need to kind of be nice to myself. Right. And so I do these affirmations sometimes. I repeat what she says. It makes me, it gives me an opportunity to love on myself a little bit instead of hate on myself.
That's great. Thank you. All right, before we turn on, you have an event tomorrow night in Culver, right, at the
Village Well.
Yes,
we're doing a workshop about shifting our lens, and I'm in conversation with actress Deepti Gupta. We'll be answering questions and signing books there as well at 7 at the Village Well in Culver City.
Is that ticketed or RSVP?
It's RSVP. It's free, but if you go to the Village Well website, you can find the event pretty easily. But also just show up.
Yeah, and Merideth will be in the hallway here with her books at a table. Unless Attique comes in here, I'm really hoping we get a chance to hear him because he has a really incredible story to tell, and he has really made some changes because of it. But do we have questions from the audience? I used to teach middle school. I know what wait time is, so we're good.
There were 2 back there.
Oh, on the left side. Just go ahead, because I'm failing to see the hands. Oh, The left side, my other left. Yes, up front here.
Other than the
Thank you.
Calm app, any specific meditation apps that you, or any things that you like that are specifically good for artists, composers, musicians, etc.?
Artist-centric meditation apps. I think there's a space for it. Honestly, I look on Spotify for this stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't find anything. What were you going to say, Meredith?
I do use the Calm app, but this is actually something that I've thought about doing more of. I'm glad to hear. Raise your hand if you would download that. Okay, cool. All right, good to know.
And was there another question? Hand over here.
Hi, I would like to add another thought to your interesting debate. I think one of the reasons why we get into this hamster wheel, working so hard, can be an underlying fear of not being able to accept that we can't control the outcome of our life. So if you can meditate on that and try to give up on that thought, that might be quite empowering.
Yeah. Can we unpack that a little bit? The fear that we do not have control over.
Yeah, it's a very basic fear. I think we all have in life.
Yeah.
That's where we get into this rush. If you think you have to perform, you have to sort of excel, but underneath that is probably an emotion that tells you it's hard to accept that I can't control your life. You can be very successful and fall into illness, for instance. You can't control that, but it's still your life. So
Yeah.
that can be, it sounds daunting, but it can be actually quite empowering to let that feeling
Let
go.
it go.
You're not giving away your mojo,
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? Just considering, we have some control freaks in here, am I right? Any Enneagram 3s in here? That's me. Yes. Okay. Just grappling with that fear that we cannot control the outcome. Any thoughts on that?
To me, it begs the question, well, what can I control? And that's what I want to spend my time on. And not, what kind of person do I want to be becoming? The kind of person I am as I make art matters more than the art. And so it's empowering to accept the responsibility you do have for yourself. So what can you control?
I'll add one that I know you know, and a lot of people here know from another conference. There's a little mantra that we say: write, submit, forget, repeat. That's specifically for music people, because we can't control, like you said, what we can control is make a great song, make a great piece of music, try to get it signed. Then it's out of our hands.
Yeah.
So rather than obsessing or feeling frustrated about, is this going to be the one? Is this the big placement? It's just like, forget it. Move on to the next one.
Or I should have mixed down that theremin. I should have mixed down that theremin. Yeah. Right.
That's what.
Yeah. Lawrence.
Again, I think it's how we relate to that, right? If you can't control the outcome, either that's devastating or it could be amazing. I can't control the outcome. What if that was amazing? Like, I can just breathe then. I can just enjoy the ride then. I think that can be really powerful, because I think so much of life is we get attached to the outcome because we're working so hard for it. And I think part of my own journey is to detach from the outcome so that we can just enjoy the work we do for the service it is to others and the impact we're making, and just the love for the craft itself. And when I get unattached to the outcome, just notice how your body will naturally relax and just chill out, right? But if you're attached to the outcome, if you want to try control the outcome, you will tense up, which one will create more interesting strategies that will work against you. It will cause more resistance, which will then lower the outcome even more. But the relaxation and the letting go and the relief, and I think we're all kind of coming back to a sense of spirituality. The trusting of the universe, so to speak, actually allows us to relax so that we can do our best work, which tends to help the outcome in some ways.
I think even if we can just, or before I lead us down this path, are there any other questions? I don't want to. Yes. Here comes a mic for you.
Thank you. I think a lot of people can relate to not getting enough sleep or not getting enough rest. So what are things that you do to kind of protect your rest or help facilitate you entering into a space of rest?
I would say, for me, the biggest shift, because I have 2 small children, and like rest is like, that's a 4-letter word. I would say when I stopped defining rest as sleeping or sitting on my bed or whatever, like broaden the idea of rest. And thinking, and there's some research about this in burnout research, that sometimes your brain has like a default mode that cleaning can be restful, folding laundry can be restful. So if you can't take a vacation, what can you do on your commute that will help you tap into some different form of rest that, it might not give you more hours of sleep, but it will recharge something in you. And so broadening that definition and experimenting with what feels restful.
Good. Yeah, so rest is really important, right? And what I shared is I didn't understand what it was because I usually thought it was just doing nothing, which is not restful for me anyways. And so understanding that rest is all about energy, there is depleting energy and there's recharge or rejuvenating energy in anything we do. And no matter how much you love your work, it is depleting energy. Like just embracing that and just trusting me on that one. If you told me that in my 20s, I probably would have cussed you out. But yes, anything, even if you love doing it, it is depleting energy, and just knowing we do need things that rejuvenate us. And so when we talk about rest, what are those things that rejuvenate you? I do like functional fitness, or I go to the gym 4 times a week now, and I love it. It rejuvenates me, and I do it in community. It's really fun. My wife knows that's a priority for me. She does the same thing. She has her own version of that. That's 4 times a week for me. That is a recharge energy. And I think rest should be daily and weekly. So thinking about what is daily rejuvenation for you, but what is weekly? I really live by the principle, the wisdom of, is it Parks and Rec? To treat yourself. Treat yourself is really important, y'all. Like, treat yourself every day. You want the donut, go get the dang donut. Like, you'll get back on track tomorrow. Yeah, someone's like, amen to that one, right? Do the thing that makes you recharge and see it as probably the most important thing that you can do for your creative energy. Because if you lose your spark, you lose everything. Like, not just professionally, personally, you lose everything too. So see it as an act of leadership to find rhythms of rest that is daily and weekly. And that's what I mean, as opposed to, like, as Americans, we do the big summer trip or the big winter trip. It's like, no, but what is the daily and what is the weekly too?
It's funny, because this was where I was going to take us before your question, is at these events, I don't know if I'm the only introvert in here or if there are also a few, but I've learned to check in. Something you teach children for stress management, right? It's a scale of 1 to 10, even sitting here in this moment. I'm at probably like a 7.5, 8. We're speaking and trying to keep my brain focused and all that, but just taking a moment here for yourself and just feeling like, what part of your body is tense? Can you let it rest? It takes a moment of focus. Is your heart rate elevated? Can you take a deep exhale and let yourself rest, even in this moment, when you're networking and trying to get the next gig? And I think it helps me too, because you see photos after an event, and yet I have a face like this because I'm at 11, right? But just taking moments within the event, within the work, within the meeting, whatever it is, and allowing yourself to rest and teaching yourself, your body, to rest in these this constant barrage of anxiety, right? So Attique has just told me that he is here, and I am stalling because I'm hoping we get a chance to hear his story. But just in case we don't, and I know we're running up against our time here, I'm going to give a chance for one more question, and then we're going to say thank you to our folks. Yes, right here, yellow shirt.
Hello, thank you very much for speaking. I recently read John Cleese's book on creativity, and he talks about allowing yourself to work in cycles of creativity throughout the day. Like when you run into that wall, to not feel like it's like something you have to push through. I was wondering if you all, for any of you, can relate to that or have found that true or What do you think about that?
Pushing through a creative wall
Right.
or an energy wall?
Mostly like, I guess they're sort of the same thing in my mind.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I think that the work of creativity is really energy management. And we talked a little bit about, rejuvenating, but there's this essay by Paul Graham, who is a computer scientist, who wrote about the difference between maker energy and manager energy, and how
that was huge for me, that article.
The world sort of rewards managers, right, to work in an hour blocks, and he names that, and Graham said that when we were developing a new software, we needed like 7 hours or 7 hours and 12 minutes of sometimes we were standing up, sometimes we were moving, we needed space, we needed energy. And so how are you, as you hit that wall, is it because you're in manager mode, right? Because you need manager energy to be creative as well, right? Otherwise, you may just sit there twiddling your thumbs or not putting pen to paper. And so how does the maker versus manager energy play into that wall, and looking at practicing checking in with yourself and naming sort of what's going on that's causing this resistance? That's what I would look at.
So speaking of energy management, that really is what creativity is. I guess I have a question to throw out there for all of you, and you can answer at the same time. At what time of the day do you do your best creative work? Okay, some people are at night. Give me a show of hands if it's in the morning for you. Give me a show of hands if it's night for you. Okay, so I just want you to notice that. That's really important for you to know and to protect that time, right? So we're talking about creating the airplane you want to fly. Create the best, like I call it the perfect work week. What is the perfect work week for you? What is the perfect work day? And so if you know your best creative energy is at whatever time you just said, you're going to protect that at all costs for the best creative work you can do. What happens is we're letting things in. I call them invaders, right? We're letting things in, whether it's little tasks or little dopamine hits, like, I don't know, an IG feed shows up or an email comes in and you're like, I gotta check it. Then that's that moment we're letting these little invaders come into our most precious creative time. So I think that's number one of like guarding that time is when you do your best creative work. Block it off. Do not let people have access to it. If people can see your calendar, it's just blocked. Because if you're your own entrepreneur, it's probably worth $1,000 per hour that time for your best creative energy. And most of us use $1,000 per hour work, and we pay ourselves $10. We do $10 an hour tasks. So that's a real big drain, right? The second thing I would say is, when you're running out of creative juices, working harder or working longer will have diminishing returns. And I can tell you this because in a former life, I gave about almost 50 public speaking messages every single year, which is about cranking out a 1-hour talk every week, by the way. So there's a lot of writing in there. And I knew when I was going to get diminishing returns. So I think you all know this. If you hit a wall, go do something else. It doesn't even matter what it is. Hopefully not work related. Go make a cup of coffee. Go do a workout. Go play Fortnite if you need to. Just make sure you come back and don't get lost on Fortnite. Right? Like go do something else. Take a walk around the block. Yeah, I don't say that from experience. Go take a walk. And when you come back, you'll notice that you might actually get a new idea either during that random activity or when you come back. It's because your brain shifts in perspective and that your creativity, you don't spark more creativity the longer you work. That's a myth. You need to have a break, and then your brain will kind of replenish and have new ideas as you do something else. That's why a lot of great ideas are in the restroom, right? The shower, I won't say where else. So you gotta do that, go do that, right? Just know, like, I am hitting a wall. Then don't keep going. Go do anything else for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour if you need to, and come back. Or don't. Because that's the next day you have that same creative block again. So hopefully that's helpful.
Well, I really hope you will take a moment today, come say hi to Merideth, talk to Juliet, talk to Lawrence, and definitely, if once Attique arrives, be sure to give him a chance to tell his story. But let's say thank you, shall we, to these panelists, and thank you so much for your engagement. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.